Earlier in the season, we were growing beets and under the hoop house, and now Bruce and David are taking the hoop house down so that they can move it over to where we're going to grow summer crops.
Before we tried pulling them out with brute force or using a lever and wire like we're using with the T-post, and it was just so much work. So actually Kent Coates mentioned spinning them with a pair of pipe wrenches, and I didn't quite get what he meant. And then just yesterday, Jen kicked into a rebar wearing her sandals, and I saw the pipe wrench sitting there for another job, and I remembered this thing that Kent said, so I tried it, and it works like a demonstrating how to take a 48-inch rebar hoop anchor post out with a pipe wrench. Spinning the post, what you're doing is it breaks the seal so that as the dirt compacts in and catches on all the little bumps of the rebar, which is what holds it in the ground, by spinning it you loosen the dirt all along the edge of where the rebar is, and then it just pulls right out. Okay.
Just like what Bruce is doing right now.
Yeah.
This is greenhouse layout happening now. Or I should say hoop house. That's where the hoop house was. You can see the plastic off to the side. And this is where the hoop house is going to go.
Okay, we've dug our beds now. We're going to just rake them out. We'll be ready to put the landscape fabric down, and then... Okay, here we are. We're putting in the ground anchors. And the thing with this is just to put them in at a slight angle in from vertical, about 15 degrees. And to put them in, I'm putting them in a little bit inside of the edge of my landscape fabric. This way I'll be able to mow or cut with a cutter bar and control the weeds that grow up to the edge of the fabric without bumping into my structure. So by laying out the fabric so that it has just a bit of overlap, I save myself a lot of work later on this summer. Even more overlap than this would be ideal, and in a system where you're using landscape fabric bed after bed, I would overlap it right up to here and have total control like we do up on the hill where there's several houses together. So this doesn't take that long. It should take about an hour to put in all the hoops and to put in all the rebar. And once we do that, we'll be ready to put up the hoops. Okay, so now we've put in the ground anchors and it's time to put in the hoops. It's amazing with this design. This is one of the quickest parts of the whole process. We'll have these up in 10 minutes. Have it, greenhouse is up, about 15 minutes, get all the hoops up. Now we're going to pound in the T-posts, attach the all-important guy lines, and then we'll be ready to cover the house with plastic. Okay, so I've just pounded in these two T-posts, put them in, 5 inches apart, and they're about 3 or 4 feet into the ground. Notice this guy line that runs all the way up to the last arch. I have a trucker's hitch here to hold it tight. Now Bruce is just putting one in at the other side. I'm pulling it tight, just getting it even at this point, and then we'll lash this down, and then we'll go to the other end of the house and pull it really tight before we lash it.
Okay. So you pulled it between the T-bars, and then you looped it around again, and pulled it between the T-bars.
Now we're cinching the T-bars tight.
Getting it really tight,
Yeah.
using your legs.
Important thing when lacing is to get it tight. If the rope is too loose, the plastic could either work up or down. In a windstorm it can work up and actually go right over the house, or in hot, still weather the plastic can stretch and get loose enough to fall down when you ventilated the house by scooching the lacing up the greenhouse, and now the last step we need to do is to tighten the ropes. So Bruce and I are going to work opposite each other, pulling the rope tight, and then the other person will pull it tight one section down, and we'll work our way down the house, tighten off the first piece of rope, and then do the second piece, and if necessary we'll tighten off the first piece we tightened, we'll tighten it off again, just to make sure that the house is tight enough that the wind won't be able to catch the plastic and lift it, and also making sure that the plastic won't fall down when it gets hot in the heat of the day. So this is an important job, and it only takes a few minutes. Once it's done, we're done with moving the Hanley house. I think that was fairly tight. Yeah.
So David's on the other side, tightening.
You want to pull, Bruce?
What's that?
You want to pull?
I am pulling.
Okay. Now go down one.
You see that they're working together, and Bruce pulls the rope on every second hoop, while David is tightening on the other side. There. Here we're on the other side of the hoop house, where David is working in tandem with Bruce to tighten the ropes. Or they call them laces. At the other end of the hoop house. They're tightening the last piece. So that's what it looks like. Every other hoop is tight.
All right.
Okay, and then the next step is
To do the other.
to do the other lace.
So obviously, doing all this work to move a greenhouse, it's a fair bit of fussing around. And in my mind, I have to think about the alternatives. The obvious alternative would be to build a mobile greenhouse, Elliot Coleman style. The problem with that is they're really expensive, and they're a fair bit of work to put together, and I'm not totally convinced that they won't blow away in the wind or get damaged in big storms like so many greenhouses do. The other solution would be to not move your greenhouse at all. The problem with that is that when you crop in the spring, so oftentimes you end up with crops that want to continue growing past the point where you want to plant your tomatoes. And so you end up either finishing with the crop before you'd normally want to, or you end up with a crop that a tomato crop that's or a summer crop that's planted too late. So this is a lot of work, but it has serious advantages. Also, by moving the crop onto the landscape fabric, we won't have to do hardly any weeding all summer long. So let's say, I don't know, 2 people working for 4 or 5 hours it takes to move this house will be well made up for in the lack of weeding all summer. So overall, I think this system works. I'm looking forward to experimenting with it for a few years to see just how labor effective it is. Take a look inside. Here we have how to ventilate the house. You just lift up a corner, and in order to lock it so it doesn't slide in, you take the bottom edge of plastic and just ride it up top like that. You can just ventilate the side. You can just lift up like this. You can do several hoops and then, again, fold it and it will just lock in place. You want to come take a look inside? Here we have 1,700 square feet of growing space, perfect ventilation. The only thing we haven't done yet is hang the irrigation. You want to do that?